Hi, this is Kerry Artak with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your weekly update in Bitcoin. I did record this video on Sunday, June 22nd, 2025, so you know. I like to start with the big picture so we see what the longer term expectations are, and then we'll work into the day itself. So this is a chart that goes back some 7 years, and in it I show this well-defined 5-year channel structure that we closed above on a weekly basis back in November of last year that set up as our next long-term objective, 122,433. Just a full swing. There is no, or at least at the time, there were no structures, no long-term channels at that time that we could lean on. So this was really, and still is, a significant overhead target that we are anticipating. And the 84,490 level is the 5-year channel top. It should be mentioned that when we closed above it, we topped out in January and fell back during all the tariff discussions and announcements. We kept testing the 84,490 channel top, but we never settled below it at the end of a week. And that is critical. Had we closed below, back below, I should say, this structure, that would have been a longer term show of weakness. But it actually held roughly. I mean, there was a lot of slippage on an intra-week basis, but we never closed above it. And now we've actually pushed beyond the January high. The more recent high is 111,999 that was put out about 6 weeks ago. And so let's zoom in just a little bit and take a look at the fact that it was about 8 weeks ago, if I'm doing my math correctly, that we closed above this descending channel top at 97,120. And this is meaningful support that, if tested this week, can absorb selling through July, even into later Q3, and above which we still expect 122,433 as a 2 to 3 month target. So it is 97,120 is our base of support. That is actually preceded by, I could go through the entire list here. We have a 6-7 week descending channel bottom at 99,047. We have a downside 3/8 Fibonacci from that April low against the more recent high in May at 97,641. And the lowest of them all is the descending channel top at 97,120. So there is a wide range here between 97,120 and 99,047 that may capture selling pressures through July. And from here we can round back up to the high that was put out in January at 109,192. What's worth mentioning about that is that we pushed through 109,192 3 times on a weekly basis over the last 6 weeks. We've not yet closed above it. A settlement above 109,192 should yield this long-awaited 122,433 within a couple of months, where we can double top, on a monthly basis. I've been mentioning how we have this more recently formed rising channel top that is our overall objective. So if I were to back out of this image as I am here, it is holding above 97,120 that will keep, over the next 3 to 5 months perhaps, this 127,658 rising channel top in reach. This structure is a full year in the making, a year plus, able to contain buying on a quarterly, possibly annual basis. If we close once again above 109,192 at the end of this week, we should see this upper area within about 2 to 3 months. This is a significant zone. In particular, 127,658 is a significant resistance area that, if I were long Bitcoin and I didn't want to see the market fall away from the upper 120s back into the mid 80s or climbing, this would be a channel bottom then. That is what's possible. Once we test 127, we can fall away to channel support within a matter of a half a year or so. And that has happened many times before. There's plenty of precedent for that, so that's not hyperbole. We could test out, we could top out at 127 and fall back to what is now a trend line at 83,000 roughly, and climbing into the low 90s by September would become a channel bottom. And that would be in reach within a half a year or so of testing 127,658. Once again, closing above 109,192. If you're not long Bitcoin now, you should, on that information alone, pushing then into the 120s within several months. Downside, we've got 97,120 that is preceded by all kinds of stuff 99,047 descending 6-week channel bottom, 97,641 downside 3/8 Fibonacci. Anybody can have at these levels if you're a day trader, a 3 to 5 day swing trader, and a 2 to 3 week swing trader. The 2 to 3 week time frame, as you slip into the lower 99,000 handle all the way into the lower 97,000 handle, does allow upward rotation back to 109, 192 within 2 to 3 to 5 weeks. Finally, it would be a settlement back below 97,120 that would tell me that we're likely to continue, that Bitcoin is likely to sell off through much of July. I would then expect, wrong chart, I would then expect this 84,495 year channel top again. So if we close back below that descending channel top that I have represented here as a horizontal line at 97,120, if we were to close below that at the end of this week, this could be 3 to 5 weeks with a high volatility sell-off. This could also take several months. 84,490 is essentially the beginning of a wide zone down to 76,245, a recently formed rising channel bottom that can absorb selling through the rest of the year, possibly well into 26, and from here we can round up again. I see no, how should I put this? At this stage, I see no good reason to liquidate a Bitcoin position on a longer term basis, say well into 26 and beyond, unless we close below 76,245. Until then, holding above 84,490 does maintain the 120s, the 122, 433 to 127, 658 area remains a long-term objective. I'm going to leave it at that. I think that pretty much covers it for this week's Bitcoin update. You have a great week.